So when I had that realization that I thought like, finally I could go off and do my own thing and be, who I've wanted to be for the past, 20 plus years. And I realized I couldn't. There was a tremendous amount of resentment that comes up. So like all those feelings that over time, essentially become malignant internally, all came to the surface. And so there was a lot of denial. Like, this isn't happening. Like, this is impossible. And so there was a tremendous amount of resentment. And so, when the family unit dissolved, it dissolved in a very unhealthy way. The children were split. So I'm a single dad to one of my sons, and my other son lives with my former partner. And so in that process, there's really a lot of soul searching about like, well, now what? Of the many positive attributes that I have, one thing is this willpower that truly believes I can shape the world however I want it. So when I had to accept the fact that I wasn't able to leave my job and I wasn't able to pursue the things that I really loved, the Path2 mentality really came into play here of, well, what if I could? Let's assume I can. Let's assume I can still stay trapped in a certain situation, but still do the things I love. And at first, the rational mind says, well, you can't do two things at once. And then it was, well, we're not being rational here. We left rationality a long time ago. Now we're just making decisions to be like, hey, once you've lost to the house, every bet is fair game. And so it was, what could I possibly do to chase my dreams and fulfill what my natural, authentic desires were, knowing that I still essentially have this millstone that I'm attached to. And what was amazing about that was once I could reframe the possibility and say, I can still chase my dreams and still do this other thing that I'm trapped doing, I no longer resented the thing that I was trapped in. Because before, when I was trapped, it felt like it was preventing me from doing the stuff I wanted to do. And when I finally said, well, assume you can do everything, assume there's no barrier, you just have to figure out a way around it, then it was like, it was completely liberating. So I could then say, all right, well, I want to be a writer, I want to be a teacher, I want to be a coach and help people, and I want to be a public speaker. And it was, okay, now let's figure out how to make that all work. There was no choice of pick one. And so when I was able to get that to work, then it really opened up everything. It was, okay, well, what kind of crazy things can I think of? Let's throw all nutty ideas on the table and start doing what you want to do. And things have kind of manifested where it was like, you know what, you've always wanted to invent this one little thing, this little gadget. Let's start looking at that. Like, let's invent that gadget. Why not? And it really started when I had a moment of clarity. I had to take some time off. And I remember standing in the desert in Tucson, and I was watching the sunset, for like the fifth day in a row. And it is breathtaking. And I remember sitting there watching the sunset and saying, why can't I have this every day? And then I realized, like, well, you're an adult and you have free will. So in theory, if you want to, you can. Like, you can. And I was like, well, I guess I can. Well, what would that take? And it was like, well, it would take you, negotiating certain things with your employer. It would take you having to relocate yourself 2,000 miles. It would, a lot of things would have to happen. And I came to the conclusion of, well, if it's important to me, I guess I'll either make those things happen or accept the consequence that they can't happen, but I'm still going to move. And so that was the aha moment. That to me was the magic key that said, if I don't let the barriers control me, I can do anything. And so at first that allowed me to kind of pull back on the level of resentment that I had toward my partner about not being able to leave the profession and the career that I invested 20 years in. And what it also allowed me to do was to then look at that career and that profession and say, I know there's a lot of other professionals that do what I do that feel the exact same way. And if I can empower them, and that became my first mission, was approaching legal and compliance professionals and saying, we can be happy and still do our job. Like, it's not mutually exclusive. And so it was really focusing on that. And then when I realized that how possible that is and the reality behind it, it was like, wait a second, it's not just us, it's everybody. And I could see the common thread in so many other people that it was, this needs to be available to everybody, because we can't continue to believe that we're stuck. And that's all that there is, that there is a way out of stuck, and it doesn't require us to detonate everything we've invested up to this point. Because I can tell you, the people I've seen that go through that change, and I'll use my former partner as an example. When they finally decided they wanted to do something different, their strategy was blow everything up. They didn't want to keep anything intact. And that's really sad from a number of different perspectives, because each of us lives in a system. And other people depend on that system and play roles. And so when some person in the system decides to blow the system up, it affects other people. And so, which is a different solution than I'm going to change my role. Now the system can adapt and it can choose not to, but I'm just going to change my role. I'm not going to sit there and level the system. And so that was really, it was really eye-opening to me to figure out that solution of I can still do what I want and fulfill an obligation that I'm not happy about having, but I can do it with a different energy level.